Hey guys, Brandon Lynette here. This is Faith and Fire, God and Country. I am recording this episode. I know I'm like a week and a half late for you guys. I just want to say thank you and I love you for your patience. The schedule I was running was unsustainable and everything just kind of blew up and I couldn't breathe. I did not have a moment to get everything together. Our weekend, it was the first weekend that was 3 day back to back softball, like sun up to sundown, not even exaggerating. Um, 12-hour days out there. And last week, my schedule was just too much. So I appreciate your patience. I know some of you were like, haha, she didn't hack it. Um, but I'm here, babe. I'm here. The show is going to start looking a little different. I have some ideas. Um, I have some ideas. All right. Uh, and I hope you guys stay with me for the new direction. Um, quick things before we get started. I'm going to talk about my super patch. Okay, Liberty Freedom. This is what my husband wears every single day because he's had debilitating pain for as long as I've known him, but pretty much his entire life. When your body is fighting you, this is the go-to. He takes zero pain meds. I literally used to have to make him like weed brownies and stuff for work just so he can mentally be distracted, but he'd still be in pain. And then he would hate the day because his brain is foggy, right? He hated it. He went through an addiction with opioids, fought that, won't take pain pills anymore. So basically, he just suffered with the pain. And there were days, I'm telling you guys, that if I woke up and he had unalived himself, I would not have been shocked. He was miserable. And his miserable energy, made him angry, reactive, and it was a little volatile there for a second. These patches changed everything for him, and so I'm never going to stop talking about that, never going to stop sharing them. I say that's the go-to. If your body is fighting you, go there. My link is in the show notes. This is vibrotactile technology. There is no ingredients in this, no drugs, no lecture, just braille for your brain. Okay. Um, you guys know I'm doing the Listen Bitch podcast. We're back this week as well. So thank you for your patience there. I love you guys for sticking with me and not giving up when I disappeared. I'm almost at 600 episodes. So please find it, Listen Bitch, wherever you listen. It goes great with what you're about to hear. Okay. You guys know that this episode, this podcast isn't always a safe space. I don't know that it ever will be. And what I'm facing now, I can't even say it out loud. I'll be honest, I'm terrified. I'm terrified of what's coming next with the show. So stick with me because I don't think that I can endure what's coming without you guys. So just thank you for being here. Yesterday morning, we'll just get into it, okay? Yesterday morning, literally on June 1st, Trump got a phone call with Netanyahu. I still don't think I say his name right and don't really care. But according to um, Axios, citing a U.S. official who was briefed on the call, Trump said this to the prime minister of Israel. And I'm not apologizing for the language. I know I don't swear a lot on the show intentionally. I'm working on that for you guys. Um, but I'm using the quotes here. You're fucking crazy. You'd be in prison if it weren't for me. I'm saving your ass. Everybody hates you now. Everybody hates Israel because of this. And then he reportedly asked him, "What the fuck are you doing?" So I'll give you the context because I think context matters and I want to be fair about what was happening. Um, Netanyahu has been threatening to bomb Beirut, not just southern Lebanon, actually Beirut, the capital. And Trump has been in the middle of nuclear negotiations with Iran. We know that. Iran told the U.S. that if Israel strikes Beirut, Iran walks away from the table. Trump has spent months trying to get a deal done. Netanyahu's escalation was about to blow all of this up. So Trump called him and said, "Stand down, stop." And according to the recording, he steamrolled Netanyahu. Bibi apparently said, "Okay, okay, just make sure everything is taken care of." And the planned Beirut strike was called off. Then Netanyahu released a public statement saying that he'd still bomb Beirut if Hezbollah didn't stop. So even after being steamrolled by the president of the United States, this fool is still telling the world he's going to do what he wants. So I've been covering the Israel situation on the show for months. I followed the money. I've named the APAC spending. I've talked about the $34 million spent to remove Thomas Massie, the man who asked for fair transparency and who funded that removal. I've been honest that I think Trump has been entangled with some donor network that funds both parties. Today, Donald Trump called the Prime Minister of Israel fucking crazy. Told him he'd be in prison without Trump's protection and said that everybody hates Israel right now. I mean, is he wrong? Is Trump waking up? This could be the disruption I've been hoping to see. Or is this a man protecting a geopolitical deal while still fundamentally maintaining the same alliance? I genuinely don't know. But what I know is that you're fucking crazy, I'm saving your ass is not the language of a man who is fully controlled by the people writing those APAC checks. And I think that matters to say right now in bold print. So we just need to watch what he does next. And not what he says, not what he performs, you guys. I'm saying watch the actions. The Trump that I believe in and pray for is the wrecking ball. He is the Cyrus, the one who knocks down the walls, the comfortable people never would. And yesterday's call felt like a wrecking ball swinging in a direction that I've been waiting to see it swing. So I'm not declaring victory. I'm not saying I know, because I don't. I don't know that any of us really know. But what I'm saying is just keep an eye on the space. That's all. And so since we're already talking about Israel and power and what gets hidden and what gets protected, let me tell you something that is even bigger, a little older, and even more infuriating. Because this conversation, and I've been trying to have really open conversations with people who do not believe the same in me, with me, as me, rather than just blocking these people. Anyone who's been willing to have a conversation rather than calling me names, I'm excited for that. But the go-to is always the same. All of a sudden, Trump and his administration, it's protecting pedophiles. Okay? He's getting all the blame for this. And so I want to bring some truth here to this, because the Epstein files have existed since 2008. Not 2019, not 2025, 2008. So please, can you just be open to hearing the full timeline? Because a lot of people only have half of it. And the half that they're missing is exactly the half that would destroy the narrative being used to beat up this current administration. It's like all they have left to hang on to. And the argument's exhausting. It's exhausting. So listen to me. In 2005, what is that, 21 years ago, Palm Beach police open a child sexual abusive investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. Girls as young as 14 come forward. The evidence is overwhelming. 21 years ago, they've got receipts. 2007 to 2008. This is the Bush administration. U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta handles the federal case. And instead of prosecuting Epstein for the federal crimes, the evidence clearly supported crimes that would have meant decades in prison, actual accountability. Acosta cuts a deal. He got one state charge, 18 months in county jail, work release 6 days a week. His co-conspirators get immunity. The victims, babies as young as 14, are never notified, which is itself a federal crime. And you can fact check me because that was confirmed later by a judge. Acosta later explained why. He said he was told Epstein belonged to intelligence. We know that. He was CIA. And he was told to stand down. A U.S. attorney was told by someone above him to back off a child predator because the child predator was an intelligence asset. Let that sink in. Rewind this and play it as many times as it takes for your brain to comprehend. Then all this is out. We've got 8 years of Obama. 8 years. Not one term, 2 terms. The FBI had the files. DOJ had the files. Epstein continued operating. Maxwell continued operating. Bill Clinton, who flew on Epstein's plane 26 documented times, that's documented, multiple times without Secret Service detail, was one of the most prominent political figures in the world during this entire period. And the Obama administration did nothing. Zero. Not one investigation reopened, not one victim notified. 8 years of nothing. Who's the pedophile protector? Then Trump's first turn. Epstein's arrested July 2019 for the first time under Trump's DOJ. That is a fact. Check it. The first federal arrest, the first real accountability. Acosta was Trump's labor secretary. When the heat came, Acosta booked it. But the arrest happened under his administration. Epstein, air quotes, dies in custody under circumstances that everyone, and I mean every single person who has looked at the case, knows none of that adds up. Federal facility. Cameras malfunctioning. Guards asleep. The man with more incriminating information on the global power elite than possibly anyone alive is just gone. Maxwell convicted under Trump's first term and completed under Biden. She's in prison. Her client list sealed. The documents classified. Every congressional deadline for release missed. Every request met with pages of black redaction bricks for years of Biden. For years, nothing. Now, Trump's current term, more Epstein documents released than every previous administration combined. Flight logs, FBI communications, the DOJ memo confirming Trump himself flew on the plane. His own name, he released that. Under his own administration, his own DOJ. Does that sound like someone trying to bury the story? And yet the loudest voices demanding Epstein transparency are pointing almost exclusively at this administration. The same administration that released more than anyone else, with the people who sat on these files from 2008 to 2019 for 11 years. Where was your outrage? Where is it? 2 full presidential terms face essentially no accountability in this conversation. You tell me what that selective outrage is actually about. Make that make sense to me. I'll tell you what I think. The Epstein files aren't just embarrassing. They're not just politically inconvenient. They are a map of who has been controlled by who, for how long, and through what mechanism. They are the architecture of leverage over the most powerful people in the world and the system. I'm not talking about my president. I'm talking about the system, the deep, entrenched, bipartisan, decades-old system, those Satan-worshipping pedophile elites that just own the world. Even Massey called them out when he said every Republican congressman has their AIPAC person. That system does not want the map released. And I'm going to tell you right now, a president can only do what the structural resistance built over decades will allow. Sometimes what looks like failure is the ceiling of what one man can do when the walls around him were built before he got in the room. Come on, I'm not going to sit here and say he's done everything right. I'm saying the framing is rigged and you deserve to see the whole picture. Evil men do not understand justice, but those who seek the Lord understand it fully. I am saying, look at this fully, all of it, all 23 years that they've been sitting on this. And while we're talking about the system and who it protects, let me tell you about what Tulsi Gabbard declassified. The Director of National Intelligence has released NSA intercepts, okay? Actual signals intelligence, actual surveillance from late 2022 showing that the Ukrainian government officials and unspecified U.S. government personnel working through USAID, in Kyiv reportedly developed a plan to route hundreds of millions of American taxpayer dollars to fund the Biden campaign. I'll say that again. I'm going to talk a little slower so that this can make sense to you. Because what? The NSA intercepted conversations in which Biden's own government officials and Ukrainian officials were planning to use foreign aid money, money taken from American taxpayers and sent to Ukraine, to funnel back into Biden's reelection campaign through a complex series of subcontracting arrangements specifically designed to make the transactions untraceable. We knew Ukraine was like the money laundering. We knew that. Gabbard's team looked to find evidence about this being investigated during the Biden administration. They assess the intercepts are not Russian disinformation. Gabbard has directed USAID to search its own records to determine if the plot was executed and whether a criminal referral to the FBI is warranted. So we sent $175 billion to Ukraine during the Biden years. $175 billion. Oh, but listen, the best part, celebrities told you it was your patriotic duty to pay $5 for the freedom or something. Pay for the $5 gas for the freedom or something. While the NSA is apparently intercepting conversations about routing that money back to U.S. politics. And the media, oh, we love the media, don't we? The media that ran 3 years of breathless Ukraine flag profiles, all the virtue signaling, told you to change your avatar. Wow, they've not said a word about this. The truth is coming out and they are silent. What do I say on the show? Follow the money. Always follow the money. It will tell you everything the narrative is trying to hide. And I want to talk about a pattern because individual stories can be dismissed as coincidence. We know that. But when the same thing keeps happening to the same type of person, and this is usually a person who knows too much and says it out loud, at some point, coincidence stops being any reasonable kind of explanation. Her name was Brandy Vaughan. She is a former pharmaceutical sales rep for Merck. She quit the industry after Merck's drug Viax turned out to have twice the rate of heart attacks and strokes that this company, Merck, disclosed because they hid the safety data. Brandy watched that happen from the inside and it changed her. So she founded this website, learntherisk.org. And this website is dedicated to educating people on the risk associated with pharmaceutical products and vaccines. She became one of the most prominent voices in the vaccine safety conversation. She had tens of thousands of followers. She spoke at rallies. She testified. She was loud and she was specific. And she named names. December of 2019, Brandy Vaughan wrote a public post. She said that she was not suicidal. She said she had not taken any pharmaceutical products in 10 years. And she said there was nothing in her system that could cause her to die suddenly or unexpectedly. And then she wrote these words, and this is a quote. If something were to happen to me, it's foul play, and you know exactly who and why, given my work and my mission in this life. So she writes this in December of 2019. She was found dead by her 9-year-old son days later. She's only 45 years old, in excellent health. She recently passed a comprehensive insurance physical, and the fact her 9-year-old son had to find her. The sheriff's office investigated. No cause of death has ever been publicly confirmed as foul play. The story is going around again right now, and I've seen it circle a few times over the years, and I think it keeps going around because people can't let it go, and they shouldn't, because it is one more data point in a pattern that has become impossible to ignore. How many scientists have I told you guys have gone missing? How many researchers die before they testify? How many pharma whistleblowers write public statements saying if this happens, it's not natural, and then it happens? How many times does a person with specific information about powerful institutions say the words foul play before their death and the official investigation finds nothing actionable? I'm not going to tell you who killed Brandy Vaughan. I don't I don't need to tell you. What I know is that she said you know exactly who and why. And she pointed at the pharmaceutical industry. And I know that the pharmaceutical industry has a documented, verified, legally settled history of hiding safety data. Merck did it with the Vioxx. They paid billions in settlements. People died. And a woman who knew that from the inside and told the world and warned you she was afraid was found dead by her kid. If that doesn't make you want to ask more questions, I don't know what to tell you. Numbers 32:23. Be sure your sin will find you out, because it always does. And maybe it's not on our timeline, but it always does. And I want you guys, y'all know I told you that McDonald's is human meat. We're eating human meat. There's body chop shops in the United States. Maybe it's a tinfoil hat I'm wearing, or maybe I just know because they've told us. They've literally told us. It's out there. So I'm going to tell you, this might just seem kind of strange, but I just stick with me for a second, okay? There is a process called aquamation. You can look it up. It's also called alkaline hydrolysis. They call it water cremation, really. And it is a real, legal, licensed method of body disposal in use right now. I only found right now it's only in 21 US states. I'm saying only, okay? It's happened in like almost half of the United States, documented. The process works like this. The body is placed in a pressurized chamber, and then it's immersed in a solution of water and potassium hydroxide. It's heated, and then over the course of several hours, the soft tissue dissolves. What remains is a skeleton, which gets processed into ash and returned to the family, and then there's a large quantity of liquid. That liquid, in most states, the liquid is discharged into the municipal house water wastewater system, the sewer, which feeds into water treatment facilities, which produces the water that comes out of your sink. Now, the water treatment advocates will tell you that municipal treatment systems process and purify everything. They're going to tell you that the liquid from aquamation is no different from other organic waste streams. They will tell you that the treatment systems are designed for exactly this kind of input. And I'm not a water treatment engineer, so I guess I really can't pretend I can disprove that argument on technical grounds. But what I will say is, this. There are real patents filed, and please go look them up, okay, for technologies describing distributed delivery of biological or chemical agents through municipal water systems. The research into what can and cannot survive water treatment is ongoing. And we live in a country where we recently watched a federal government tell us to put a substance in our arms repeatedly with escalating mandates that turned out not to do what they said it would do, made by companies that have settlements totaling billions of dollars for hiding safety data. And at what point does the question become reasonable? I'm not saying your tap water has dissolved dead people. I'm saying that a practice that puts human biological material into a public water system is happening right now in 21 states, quietly, because this isn't on the media, with a branding package called eco-friendly cremation. And most people have no idea it exists. Please ask the questions. Know what's in your water. Filter it. And remember that every single time in recent history that someone has asked, is this safe? About something the government was doing to our bodies, the official answer was yes. And the official answer was eventually revealed to be incomplete at best. If it's from the government, it's not safe. God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed life into his nostrils. The body is sacred. The body is not an input for municipal water management systems. And I think we should say that out loud. Say it out loud. And a quick minute for something that has really just been sitting in my head, and I think it connects some of the things that I've been saying. Two things happened in 1913 that changed the financial architecture of the country permanently. That's the Federal Reserve Act. And I really, honestly, with everything, I can't remember if I've done a show on this or not. So maybe this is a recap. Um, the Federal Reserve Act, which created a privately controlled central banking system and gave it authority over the nation's money supply, and the 16th Amendment, which established the federal income tax. So before 1913, the United States government funded itself primarily through tariffs. Ooh, is that a trigger word for some of you? Tariffs. I feel like everybody just went, ah! People are hissing at me. I don't know. Like I just threw holy water out there. Import duties. That's what a tariff is. You buy foreign goods, you pay a tax on them. American manufacturers were protected, American workers were employed, and the government's revenue came from trade, not from taking a percentage of every American's labor. After 1913, two things happened simultaneously. A private banking cartel got control of the money supply, and the government got a direct line into your paycheck. Neither of these things happened by accident, and neither of them happened in isolation from each other. Trump has been openly discussing replacing federal income tax with tariff revenue. He is genuinely the first president to make that argument in a serious policy context since before the Federal Reserve was created. Whether he can get us there, again, you guys, there's a box built around him. He can only do so much with the baby eating pedophile elites, okay? Whether the structural resistance around the income tax and the feds will allow it, that remains to be seen. But the conversation being had in public right now is what if we went back to a system where the government gets its money from taxing trade rather than taxing your working tails, your labor? What does that do to the power of the central banking system that has been running the money supply since 1913? That's another thing. I did have a conversation. Trump has disrupted that. That banking system, he put some big cracks in that foundation. So what does this do to the relationships between the government and the individual when the government can no longer dip directly into your paycheck? Follow the 1913 thread. It is one of the most important threads in understanding how the country got to where it is and possibly can give you some insight on where it is trying to go right now. Before we get into the fights ahead, I'm going to give you something genuinely good. I do try to celebrate the wins when they happen, and this one is real. The Trump Accounts app launched last week. I believe it was like May 28th. And I'll tell you what this is. It is a tax advantaged investment account for every American child under 18. So children born between 2005 and 2028 get a $1,000 seed deposit from the Treasury starting on July 4th, starting on the 250th anniversary of this country. Families can then contribute up to $5,000 per year. And the discounts, the accounts, all of this is invested in diversified index funds. They grow tax advantaged for 18 years. Over 4 million children are already enrolled. Michael Dell pledged $6.25 billion, I think, to fund accounts for lower income families. I did hear that BlackRock is matching the $1,000 deposit for its employees' children. Bank of New York Mellon, I believe, is doing the same. If a family contributes the maximum every year from birth, the estimated account value at 18 is over $300,000. At 28, over $1 million. And here's what this is beyond the numbers. This is a president saying to the American family, your children deserve a financial foundation, not a government check, not dependency, an investment, a stake, something that compounds over 18 years of that child's life and gives them a starting point that previous generations never had. That is generational wealth creation. That is the opposite of the system that has kept the average American family financially fragile for decades. It is real and it's live, and your children can be in it right now. So make sure you guys download the app. My kids that are under 18, I set up the account for them. So it is real. It is real. July 4th is coming fast. And I want to talk a little bit about November. I know I missed a really big week, you guys. I of course I did. With some of the elections. The electoral map right now is one of the most interesting landscapes I've seen in a long time. And I want you to go into the season knowing exactly what you're looking at and exactly where your vote matters most. Okay. On the Senate side, Republicans have two genuine pickup opportunities that could flip the balance, which is Georgia. We've got John Ossoff, the only Democrat senator running for reelection this cycle. He won his seat by a razor thin margin 6 years ago in a runoff that came down to a few thousand votes. The Republican nominee comes out of the Collins Dooley runoff on June 16th. The seat is there, but this is the thing, it requires someone showing up in June, not just November. So if you have family in Georgia, please call them now, share the show with them. The June 16th runoff determines whether Republicans have a serious shot. In Michigan, Gary Peters retired and left an open Senate seat in the state Trump won in 2024. That doesn't happen often, okay? Open seat, swing state, presidential level enthusiasm on the conservative side. The seat is absolutely in play. Of course, Democrats have their eyes on North Carolina. Tom Hills retired and left an open seat in an increasingly purple state. And they're also targeting Maine's Susan Collins, who has survived being a Republican in a blue state for decades, but is always one competitive cycle from a real fight, truly. On the governor's side, and this is where I want you to pay the closest attention, especially if you live in one of these states, pay attention. 5 Democratic governors are running for re-election in states that Trump won. That's 5 states. Arizona, Kansas, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. All of them have Democrat governors. All of them went for Trump. Michigan, y'all, this is my state. And I have my eyes on John James for governor. If you don't know that name, you need to know it. He's an Army aviation veteran, businessman, congressman, 2 near miss Senate races. He knows how to campaign. He knows how to win a general election in Michigan. The primary is August 4th for us. Please show up. Arizona, Katie Hobbs won by 17,000 votes in 2022 with an approval rating that's been underwater since the day she took office. That seat is absolutely flippable with the right candidate. Wisconsin, you've got Tony Evers retiring, open seat in the closest state in the 2024 political race. A genuine coin flip there. And then we have Kansas. Laura Kelly is a term limited and leaving an open seat in a state where registered Republicans outnumber Democrats nearly 2-1. So that should be a Republican pickup, and that will be unless someone does something to blow it. So the ballot measure piece that I need every believing parent listening to the show to hear, okay? Because what is the most important? It's not a personality contest. I want you guys voting on policies. Policies, policies, policies over personalities, policies, okay? Missouri has the Amendment 3 on the ballot this November. This is a constitutional amendment that would do 2 things. First, it's going to repeal the 2024 amendment that established abortion as a constitutional right in Missouri. Second, permanently enshrine in the Missouri Constitution a ban on gender transition surgeries, cross-sex hormones, and puberty blockers for minors. This is 1 vote, 2 protections, both children. Missouri Republicans passed this out of the legislature with 98% of the caucus voting yes. If it passes in November, no future governor and no future legislature can reverse it. It will be in the Constitution. Meanwhile, Nevada is putting a constitutional amendment on the ballot to enshrine abortion as a right. Virginia has a similar measure. Oregon is trying to bundle abortion, same-sex marriage, and gender transition medicine into a single constitutional protection. Go vote. The states are the battlefield. So know what's on the ballot in your state. Go to your Secretary of State's website this week. Find the measures. Want you to share them. Have the conversations. Tell people what they're actually voting on, not what the media tells you they're voting on. Your vote in November is a policy vote on whether children can be surgically mutilated, whether the unborn have any protection, whether your state's foundational law reflects the values you raise your family on. So you literally need to vote like you mean it. And I'm going to tell you guys about a man that I've been thinking about for a few weeks as I've watched everything I've been covering on the show. It's just been a message behind the scenes. The files that were buried, the whistleblowers who were silenced, the systems that protect themselves, the question of whether anyone placed inside the apparatus of power is actually working to dismantle it. This man's name is Joseph. Go to Genesis 37. I want you to read that whole thing and then come back. Joseph was one of 12 brothers. His father Jacob loved him openly, gave him the famous coat. And his brothers hated him for it. They hated him so specifically and so intensely that when they saw him coming across the field one day, some of them said, "Let's kill him. Let's just kill him and tell our father he was eaten by an animal." One brother, Reuben, talked them down. "Don't kill him. Throw him in a pit." He was planning to rescue Joseph later. But while Reuben was away, the other brother saw a caravan of merchants heading to Egypt, and they changed the plan. They said, "Joseph," they sold him to strangers for 20 pieces of silver, and they took his fancy coat, the coat that their father had given him, and they dipped it in goat's blood and brought it home to Jacob and said, "Look at what we found. Do you recognize this?" And their father tore his robes and he wept and he said, "My son has been devoured by a wild animal." And the brothers watched their father grieve and they said nothing to him. Joseph was sold into slavery in Egypt. He ended up in the house of a man named Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, and he worked hard. He had a gift, very unusual, observable gift for reading situations that others couldn't read. So Potiphar recognized it and put Joseph in charge of his entire household, and things went genuinely well for a while. And then Potiphar's wife lied. She pursued Joseph. He refused her. She grabbed his cloak and he ran, and she stood there with the cloak and told her husband, "This man tried to attack me." Joseph was thrown in prison on a false accusation, and he sat there, and he sat in that prison for years. Not weeks, babe, years. The text in Genesis says some time passed. It is deliberately vague, and the vagueness is the point. It was a long time. Long enough that most people would have given up. Long enough that anyone watching from the outside would have concluded that Joseph's story was over. But he had the gift, that unusual gift for really just genuinely reading hidden meanings, for understanding what dreams meant, what signals pointed to, what was coming before others could see it. And one day the Pharaoh of Egypt had a dream that no one could interpret. And someone remembered, "There's a man in prison who reads things." And so they brought Joseph out of the prison, and he stood before the most powerful man in the known world, and he told him exactly what the dream meant. 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine, and he told him what to do about it, how to store, how to prepare, how to preserve. And Pharaoh said, "Who could possibly be better suited for this than you?" And Joseph went from prison to the palace in a single day. He became the second most powerful person in Egypt. The only one above him was Pharaoh, and he was 30 years old. He had been in slavery and then in prison since he was 17. So 13 years of pit and prison, 13 years of being exactly where he was placed, inside a system he didn't choose, inside a culture that wasn't his, in proximity to a power he didn't seek, waiting for the moment when his specific gift would be needed. And his brothers, the ones who sold him, who watched their father weep, who spent years living with what they did, came to Egypt during the famine. They came to buy grain. They stood in front of Joseph. They bowed and they didn't recognize him. But he recognized them. He knew exactly who they were. He had the power to destroy them. He had every human reason to destroy them. And eventually, it wasn't immediate, but after a long and complicated process that you should read for yourself, he revealed himself. And he said this: "Do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive." You meant it for evil. God meant it for good. And I want you to hold that sentence against everything I've been talking about on every episode on this show. The Epstein files, buried for 20 years by people who meant it for evil. The cover-up, the silence, the deals, the intimidation of victims, all of it meant to protect the powerful. But the files are coming out slowly, painfully, with resistance at every step, but coming. Because the thing hidden to protect the guilty has a tendency to ultimately serve the exposure of them. The whistleblowers like Brandy Vaughan, the scientists who disappeared, the researchers who filed affidavits and were ignored, the prosecutors who were told to stand down, placed in positions of proximity to knowledge they weren't supposed to have. Some of them paid with their lives. Some of them are still paying, and every single one of them is a data point in a pattern that can't be unseen. Joseph sat in the pit. Joseph sat in the prison, and everything that looked like a dead end was actually positioning. Everything that looked like defeat was actually placement. Is there a white hat Is there someone inside the system using central casting language, signaling to a specific audience, placed in proximity to the most powerful structures in the world for a moment that hasn't arrived yet? I don't know. What I know is the Joseph framework is real. God has always placed people inside corrupt systems for a reason that doesn't become clear until the moment it's needed. And here's the question for you, the same question Joseph's story always asks: where are you placed? What access do you have? What do you know that you've been afraid to say? What gift do you have that the people around you don't understand and the system has tried to suppress? Because Joseph's gift wasn't celebrated when he had it. His brothers threw him a pit party because of his gift. The thing God put him in to serve a specific purpose was the exact thing that made him a target. If that sounds familiar to you, if you've been pushed down specifically because of what you carry, I want you to hear this. The pit is not the destination. The prison is not the destination. The placement inside the system you didn't choose, the proximity to power you didn't seek, that is not the story. That is the preparation. God meant it for good. And I want to close with this. I spent the day talking about all this heavy stuff. And I just want to ground this for you guys. The reason that any of it matters is because children are being protected or destroyed based on what people in these systems decide to do. The reason the files matter is because real girls were trafficked and the men who did this were protected. The reason Brandy Vaughan's story matters is because real people try to tell you the truth about what's being put in your body and they pay the price for it. The reason the elections matter because real constitutional amendments will determines whether real surgeons can cut the healthy bodies of real children in your state. That is not abstract. This is children. It has always been children. And the God who called himself the protector of the fatherless, the God who said in Matthew 18:6 that it would be better for a man to have a millstone hung around his neck and be drowned in the depths of the sea than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. That God has not changed his position on what happens to the people who harm children. The pit is not the destination. The gallows get built by the wrong hands. The files come out. The patterns become undeniable and the truth surfaces. And in the middle of all of it, in the middle of the 21-year cover-up and the intelligent intercepts and the bodies in the municipal water system and the elections coming in November, there is a man who said, "Come to me." All of you who are carrying the weight of this, who know too much and don't know what to do with it, who are angry at the right things and exhausted by the fight, who cannot unsee what they've seen and cannot go back by the comfortable ignorance they used to live in, come to me and I will give you rest. That is not a political slogan. That's not a bumper sticker. That is Jesus Christ telling you that the weight you're carrying of all of this, all of it, was never meant to be carried alone. If you have never given your life to Christ, if you've been circling the outside of faith while everything you're learning is making the case that there is something deeply, fundamentally wrong with the world, and you need something that doesn't move, the door is open right now in this moment. He is the way, He is the truth, He is the life. In a world that's drowning in demons and covered up files and redacted documents and weaponized bureaucracies and dead whistleblowers and children being destroyed in operating rooms, He is the truth that cannot be redacted. Come to Him now as you are. Faith, fire, God, country. In that order always. I will see you guys on the next episode.